The chandeliers of Aurum Hall glimmered like liquid gold, casting perfect reflections over crystal glasses and designer gowns. Every inch of the restaurant screamed money, and everyone in it acted like they owned the world. Ana Ruiz moved quietly between tables, balancing a tray with the grace of someone who had done this for years. Her black uniform was simple, spotless, and invisible, just the way the rich liked their servers. At the VIP table sat William Hartley, a man whose arrogance filled the room before his voice did. A billionaire investor with ice-grey hair and colder eyes, he was surrounded by guests who laughed too hard at his dull jokes. When Ana approached to pour wine, she spoke carefully. "Your Bordeaux, sir. Chateau Margaux, Premier Cru." Hartley raised a brow. "You mean Margaux, not Margox," he sneered, exaggerating the sound to humiliate her. His guests chuckled. Ana froze. She had pronounced it correctly, but she bit her tongue. Hartley leaned back, swirling his wine. "I see they're hiring anyone these days. Do they not require education anymore?" The laughter grew. Heat crept up Anna's neck. Her hands trembled slightly as she placed the bottle down, her eyes focused on the white linen tablecloth. She'd dealt with rude customers before, but this was different. This was public. Cruel. "I'm sorry, sir," she said softly. "Would you prefer I—" He cut her off. "Just pour, and maybe learn how to speak before serving people like me." Silence rippled across nearby tables. Even the live pianist missed a note. Mia Torres, the restaurant manager and Anna's friend, looked over in alarm. Anna's heart pounded, but something inside her snapped into place. Not anger, not pride, but a quiet certainty that this man didn't deserve her silence. When Hartley smirked again, raising his glass toward her like a weapon, she looked him straight in the eye for the first time. Her voice was calm, steady. "Actually, sir," she said, "you pronounced it wrong." The laughter died instantly. Hartley blinked. His hand froze mid-air. Anna stepped back, meeting his gaze without flinching. "It's Margaux, not Margox." The entire room went still, every guest, every waiter, every sound suspended in disbelief. That night, after the shift ended, Anna sat on the edge of her narrow bed in her tiny apartment above a laundromat. The scent of detergent mixed with city fumes seeped through the cracked window. She rubbed her aching feet and replayed the billionaire's voice in her mind. Every word like sandpaper on her pride. Uneducated. It wasn't the first time she'd been judged by someone rich, but somehow that word dug deeper than all the rest. Her phone buzzed. "How was work, mi hija?" It was her mother, Elena, calling from the small public hospital where she'd been receiving treatment for months. Her voice sounded fragile, worn thin by illness but still warm, like a blanket on a cold night. "It was fine, Mama," Anna lied. "Busy. You should rest." Elena chuckled softly. "You always say that when something's wrong. Tell me." Anna hesitated, then gave in. "A man at the restaurant. He mocked me. Said I wasn't educated." There was a pause. "And did you let him be right?" Elena asked gently. Anna looked down at her hands, calloused, strong, the hands of someone who'd worked every day since she was 19. "I didn't," she whispered. Elena smiled through the phone. "Good. Education isn't about titles. It's about dignity, kindness, and knowing who you are. Never forget that." Tears welled in Anna's eyes. She glanced at the old bookshelf across from her bed. On the top shelf sat a faded university textbook, Linguistics and Human Connection, and beside it, her half-finished diploma, rolled up with a rubber band. 4 years of studying languages, dreams of becoming a translator, all abandoned when her mother's heart condition worsened. She remembered the day she withdrew from school. Her professor had begged her to stay, offering part-time work at the language lab. But Anna couldn't risk losing time or income. Bills didn't wait for dreams. Every morning since then, she'd carried 2 things to work: her mother's silver bracelet and the quiet knowledge that she could still understand the world in 5 tongues, even if she couldn't afford to prove it. The memory of Hartley's insult twisted inside her. He'd looked at her uniform and decided she was nothing more than a shadow. He didn't see the woman who could order a meal in Paris, comfort a lost tourist in Rome, or translate love letters for immigrant couples who couldn't read English, But tonight, his cruelty did something unexpected. It woke the part of her that she'd buried long ago, the part that refused to be small. Anna wiped her tears and opened her notebook, the one where she still practiced writing in different languages. On the first blank page, she wrote 5 words, one in each language she knew. Respect is the only language. Then she whispered to herself, he may have money, but I have words. And for the first time in years, Anna felt powerful again. 2 nights later, the air inside Orem Hall shimmered with wealth. The restaurant had been transformed for the Hartley Holdings Investment Gala, an event whispered about in newspapers and broadcast on every local news channel. Outside, limousines lined the marble steps. Inside, reporters, CEOs, and foreign investors mingled beneath glittering chandeliers while a string quartet played softly in the corner. Anna arrived early, dressed in her crisp black uniform, her hair pinned neatly. Mia Torres, the manager, handed her the seating chart with a worried look. You're on the West Wing tonight. Table 7. Anna froze. Table 7 was his table, William Hartley's. Do you want me to switch you? Mia offered. I can put you on the back tables. No one would blame you. Anna took a deep breath. No, I'm fine. It's just another customer. But her hands trembled slightly as she tucked the chart into her apron. From the private balcony, Hartley stood like a king surveying his kingdom. His tailored midnight blue suit shimmered faintly under the light, a glass of champagne glinting in his hand. Cameras followed him as he greeted foreign investors, one from Japan, another from Italy, and a French delegate representing a luxury partnership. When Anna stepped into the dining room with a tray of champagne, she could feel the shift in the air. Conversations lowered. Staff moved carefully, like dancers avoiding landmines. She spotted Julian Crane, the journalist known for exposing corporate hypocrisy, taking notes near the bar. His eyes flicked toward her, curious. As she approached table 7, Hartley noticed her instantly. A smirk tugged at his lips. Ah, he said loudly, enough for nearby guests to hear. The linguistic expert is back. The group laughed politely. Anna smiled faintly and began to pour champagne into the first glass. Her movements were calm, precise, and professional. Hartley leaned back. I trust you practiced your pronunciations? He asked. We wouldn't want another educational mishap. One of the guests, a Japanese businessman, spoke to Hartley in his native tongue, asking a question about a recent merger. Hartley chuckled awkwardly, clearly not understanding a word. Ah, yes, of course, he said vaguely. It's all about synergy. The businessman frowned in confusion. Anna, standing quietly behind him, bit her lip. Her instinct screamed to help, but she remembered the last time she had helped. Then another guest, an Italian investor, joined in, complimenting the restaurant's risotto alla Milanese. Hartley attempted a reply, but butchered the pronunciation so badly that even the translator looked pained. Julian Crane noticed everything, jotting notes quickly. The humiliation on Hartley's face was subtle but visible. Anna's pulse quickened. She didn't want to embarrass him, but she couldn't stand to watch this farce either. When the French delegate turned to ask another question, this time directly to Hartley, he froze, searching for words. A heavy silence fell across the table, and before she could stop herself, Anna heard her own voice break the stillness. Soft, fluent, effortless. Il voulait dire qu'il appréciait votre partenariat. Every head turned. Hartley's jaw tightened. The room fell utterly silent. The moment Anna's voice flowed across the table, the noise in Orem Hall vanished. Her French was flawless, smooth, clear, melodic. It wasn't the hesitant echo of a textbook accent. It was the real rhythm of someone who had lived inside the language. He meant to say he appreciates your partnership and looks forward to future collaboration, she translated, with a polite nod towards the French delegate. The man blinked in surprise, then smiled broadly. Parfait, très bien, he exclaimed, delighted. Laughter and approval rippled through the table. Hartley's glass stopped halfway to his lips. His face hardened, the faintest twitch betraying the blow to his ego. He'd just been rescued by the same woman he had mocked days ago. Anna stepped back silently, hands clasped behind her back, eyes down. She wasn't trying to show off. She just couldn't stand the awkward silence stretching like a noose around the conversation. But to Hartley, Her quiet professionalism looked like defiance. He cleared his throat. "Interesting skill," he said dryly, loud enough for everyone to hear. "I suppose memorizing phrases is easier than earning a degree." The French delegate looked confused. "Monsieur Hartley, she speaks beautifully. Does she work for your company?" Hartley forced a smile. "No, she serves tables here, though apparently she also serves words." Polite laughter fluttered around the table, brittle and uneasy. Anna's stomach twisted. She wanted to disappear. Yet somewhere deep inside, the same spark that had flickered 2 nights ago began to glow again. Across the room, Julian Crane watched closely. The journalist's instincts buzzed. He had come expecting business news. Instead, he sensed a story, a human one, about power and pride. He quietly switched on his small recorder. Hartley, trying to reclaim control, launched into a monologue about his company's international reach. But as he stumbled through mispronounced foreign names, it only emphasized the gap between his arrogance and her quiet capability. When dessert was served, the French delegate lifted his glass toward Anna. "Merci, mademoiselle," he said warmly. "You saved our conversation. Your French is impeccable." Anna smiled softly. "Merci, monsieur. It was my pleasure." The delegate turned to Hartley. "You have remarkable staff, sir. You should be proud." Hartley's smile faltered. "Yes," he muttered tightly. "Remarkable." After the guests drifted to the bar, Hartley remained at the table, swirling the last of his wine. Anna approached to clear the dishes. He didn't look at her, only murmured, "Don't ever speak for me again." Her hands paused on the plates. "I didn't speak for you, sir. I spoke because you couldn't." He looked up sharply, eyes narrowing. Anna met his gaze without fear this time. "It's called communication, something money can't buy." Hartley said nothing. His silence was louder than any insult, and from across the room Julian Crane smiled, knowing the night's real headline had just written itself. The next evening, Orham Hall buzzed again, this time with nervous energy. Word had spread among the staff that William Hartley had filed a complaint. Nobody knew exactly what it said, only that it involved unprofessional conduct and inappropriate familiarity. Mia Torres, the manager, paced near the kitchen doors, biting her thumbnail. When Anna arrived, still unsure if she'd been fired, Mia grabbed her arm. "You shouldn't be here," she whispered urgently. "He's furious. He's threatening to pull his company's catering contract." Anna's stomach dropped, but she stood firm. "I didn't disrespect him, Mia. I just translated." Mia sighed. "I know, but people like him don't like being corrected, especially by someone in an apron." At that exact moment, the restaurant doors opened, and in walked Hartley himself, trailed by his public relations director, Veronica Dale. The atmosphere shifted instantly. Conversations died mid-sentence. The billionaire's presence sucked the air from the room. He spotted Anna almost immediately. Without a word, he strode toward her, his polished shoes clicking like gunshots on marble. "Miss Ruiz," he said, his voice smooth but sharp. "I see you're still employed." "Yes, sir," Anna replied calmly. "Unfortunate oversight," he said coldly. "But before we fix that, I'd like to give you a little advice. When someone above your station speaks, you listen. You don't interrupt. You don't embarrass them. You certainly don't correct them." Anna's cheeks burned. Several servers had stopped pretending to work. All eyes were on her. She took a breath, her heart pounding. "I wasn't trying to embarrass you, Mr. Hartley. I was trying to help." He smirked. "Help? You think I need help from a waitress?" The words echoed cruelly. Mia moved closer, ready to step in, but Anna lifted a hand, stopping her. "No, sir," Anna said, her voice steady now. "I think everyone needs help sometimes. Even the rich." A murmur rippled through the nearby tables. Hartley's jaw tightened. "You're out of line." "Maybe," she said quietly. "But at least I know how to speak to people." The silence that followed was electric. Hartley's face darkened. But before he could reply, Veronica touched his arm, whispering, "Cameras." Several diners had their phones raised discreetly. Hartley forced a strained smile. "Of course," he said, turning away. "Enjoy your shift, Miss Ruiz. while it lasts. He strode toward his table, leaving Anna trembling, but not from fear, from relief. She'd spoken her truth. Behind the counter, Julian Crane's camera light blinked red. He had captured every second. He exchanged a knowing glance with Mia, who whispered, "This isn't over, is it?" Julian shook his head slowly. "No," he said, "it's just getting started." Because in a world built on silence, one voice of dignity had just declared war. The following weekend, Orem Hall prepared for its biggest event of the year, the Global Investors Gala, hosted by none other than William Hartley himself. The entire staff moved like clockwork under a pressure so thick it felt like the air itself was watching. Photographers lined the entrance. News anchors rehearsed their segments. Every local paper had the same headline: Hartley's Charity Gala, a night of power and prestige. Anna didn't want to work that night. Mia had tried to take her off the roster, but with half the staff out sick, there was no choice. "You can handle him," Mia whispered as she handed Anna her order pad. "Just stay invisible." Anna nodded, though deep down she knew invisibility wasn't in her cards anymore. The bruise Hartley left on her pride had healed into steel. When the clock struck 8, the dining hall transformed into a kingdom of gold and whispers. Foreign investors from Japan, Germany, France, and Italy filled the grand tables. Reporters flashed cameras as Hartley entered, his custom black tux gleaming, his expression calm but deadly. At his side, Veronica Dale smiled her perfect PR smile, scanning for potential trouble. Hartley's speech began smoothly. "We're building bridges across nations," he boasted. "Hartley Holdings stands for global unity and understanding." The irony made Anna bite the inside of her cheek. She stood quietly behind his table, refilling glasses. Then came the moment that changed everything. An Italian investor leaned forward and asked a question, in perfect Italian, about Hartley's plans for renewable energy partnerships in Europe. Hartley froze for half a second. His confident smile twitched. "Ah, si, of course," he stammered, mangling every syllable. The investor's polite expression flickered with confusion. Anna's instincts kicked in before reason could stop her. She stepped forward slightly and answered, "Il signor Hartley intende espandere la collaborazione con aziende italiane specializzate in energia pulita. Ed un passo importante per il futuro." The man's face lit up. "Perfetto," he said, clapping his hands. "You speak beautifully, signorina." The entire table turned toward her. Cameras shifted. Murmurs spread like wildfire. Hartley's face flushed crimson. "She's not authorized to speak on my behalf," he snapped. But it was too late. The German investor chimed in, amused. "Impressive staff you have, Hartley. Fluent in Italian, too?" Julian Crane, sitting at a nearby table, raised his phone discreetly. He knew this was the moment. Anna lowered her gaze respectfully. "Apologies, sir," she said softly. "I only wanted your guests to understand your vision." Hartley's lips curled into a cruel smile. "My vision, Miss Ruiz, doesn't include waitresses pretending to be diplomats." Julian's camera caught every word, every drop of venom. The air in Orem Hall thickened with tension. Anna's voice, calm but firm, cut through it. "Sometimes vision requires understanding, sir. Something languages and humility can teach." The guests went silent. Even the music stopped mid-note. For the first time, the billionaire looked small under the glittering lights of his own empire. For a few endless seconds, Orem Hall stood frozen. You could hear the tick of the crystal clock, the faint hum of the air conditioner, the sound of 100 people holding their breath. William Hartley's glare could have sliced glass. Anna stood still, clutching her order pad, her heart hammering. But her voice, when it came, was steady as steel. "Sir," she said quietly, "I didn't mean to overstep." Hartley smirked, seizing the opening. "Then don't. This isn't a classroom. It's business. You may know a few phrases, but that doesn't make you educated. Tricks don't replace intelligence." The words landed like slaps, but this time Anna didn't bow her head. Something in her, something she'd buried for years, rose up, burning. She looked him straight in the eye. "With all due respect," she said, "education isn't about money. It's about understanding." The Italian investor chuckled softly. "She's right," he said in Italian. "Lei ha ragione, signore." Hartley's expression soured. "Excuse me." Anna turned toward the man and replied in the same elegant Italian, "He just doesn't like being reminded that knowledge has no price tag." Laughter broke out around the table. A few guests clapped quietly. Cameras flashed. Hartley's jaw tightened. Trying to recover, he turned toward the Japanese investor beside him. "Perhaps we should move on," he said curtly. But the man leaned forward, speaking gently in Japanese. "Your waitress is very brave and very skilled." Without hesitation, Anna bowed slightly and replied in perfect Japanese, "Thank you, sir. It's an honor to serve guests from your beautiful country." Gasps rippled through the table. The translator blinked, stunned. Even Veronica, Hartley's PR director, stared like she'd seen a ghost. Anna continued, her voice unwavering, as she switched effortlessly to French, then German, then Spanish, introducing each guest in their native tongue, complimenting their nations, and gracefully weaving her words into a tapestry of empathy and poise. By the time she returned to English, the entire table had erupted into applause. The sound spread. One table, then two, then the whole hall. Julian Crane caught it all on camera. The billionaire shrinking in his seat while the waitress he called uneducated stood tall under the chandelier's light. Hartley's face was stone. He tried to smile, but it came out brittle. "So you know some languages," he said, his voice low. "What does that prove?" Anna turned toward him, her eyes calm, steady. "It proves that respect," she said softly, "is spoken in every language, and I'm fluent in all of them." The room fell silent again. Even the orchestra had stopped to watch. Julian felt his pulse quicken. He knew he had just witnessed something powerful, something that would set the internet on fire by morning. Hartley rose from his seat abruptly, muttering, "This is over." But Anna's words followed him like a shadow, because in that moment, one waitress spoke more truth than a billionaire could buy in a lifetime. By morning, the video had spread like wildfire. Someone had uploaded it to every platform with the caption, "Waitress speaks 5 languages, destroys billionaire's ego at gala." Within hours, millions of views poured in. Comments flooded the internet, some cheering, some stunned, some demanding Hartley apologize. Headlines followed, "When money meets manners, the billionaire who got schooled, and a lesson in humanity, courtesy of a waitress." At his penthouse on the 58th floor, William Hartley stared at his phone in disbelief. Every network was running the clip. Each replay chipped away at his carefully constructed image of sophistication and dominance. His name, once synonymous with power, had become a punchline. Veronica Dale, his PR director, stood by the window scrolling through her tablet. "We're trending everywhere," she said cautiously, "and not in a good way. Investors are furious. The Tokyo deal is on hold. Milan postponed their meeting. Even the French delegation issued a public statement. We prefer partners who respect all professions." Hartley's jaw flexed. "It's a social media storm. It'll pass." Veronica shook her head. "No, sir, it's not a storm. It's a reckoning. You insulted someone in public, and she handled you with grace. The world loves her for it." He slammed his glass onto the marble table. "I won't be humiliated by a waitress." Veronica flinched but didn't back down. "Then stop acting like one. You want to fix this? You'll have to show some humanity for once." He shot her a glare, but her words hit something deeper than pride, a nerve he didn't know still existed. That night, Hartley poured himself another drink and played the video again. This time, he didn't hear the applause or the laughter. He watched Anna's face, calm, kind, unshaken. He noticed how she never raised her voice, never gloated. She had simply stood her ground with dignity. For the first time in years, he felt shame. Not the kind that fades with alcohol, but the kind that lingers, the kind that forces you to face who you've become. Meanwhile, across the city, Anna sat in her mother's hospital room, scrolling through hundreds of messages. People from all over the world had written to her, waitresses, nurses, janitors, teachers, ordinary people saying thank you for standing up for respect. Elena smiled weakly from her bed. "You see me, hija? Words can heal too." Anna squeezed her mother's hand. "I didn't want to embarrass him. I just couldn't let him treat people like they're beneath him." Elena nodded. "And that's why you won. Because you never forgot your heart." Back in his penthouse, Hartley turned off the lights and stood before the floor-to-ceiling window, the city glittering below like distant gold. For once, the man who owned everything realized how small he truly was. And somewhere between pride and regret, William Hartley began to wonder, when did he stop being human? 2 days later, William Hartley's office was silent, eerily so. The phones had stopped ringing, not because business was calm, but because there was nothing left to say. His empire was bleeding. Sponsors had pulled out of partnerships, and reporters camped outside his headquarters. Every attempt to spin the story only made him look colder. Veronica Dale stood before his desk with dark circles under her eyes. "We've tried damage control, William. Nothing works. The only move left, the human move, is an apology." Hartley stared out the window. "You think groveling to a waitress will fix this?" "I think admitting you were wrong might," Veronica replied quietly. "For once, the world doesn't want to see you powerful. They want to see you humble." For the first time in his career, Hartley didn't argue. He turned back toward his desk, the gold nameplate gleaming mockingly. Power had been his armor all his life, but now it felt like a cage. He picked up the phone. "Find her," he said. "Find Anna Ruiz." Across town, Anna was back at work. Life had changed overnight. Customers asked for selfies, journalists left cards, and offers flooded her inbox. She ignored them all. Fame had never been her goal. She still took orders, still smiled at customers, still took the bus home to her mother. That afternoon, Mia rushed toward her, wide-eyed. "Anna, you need to see this." She pointed at the TV behind the bar. On every channel, William Hartley sat before a wall of microphones. Cameras flashed as he took a deep breath, visibly struggling with his words. "Last week," he began, "I said things I'm not proud of. I insulted someone I didn't know, a woman whose grace, composure, and intelligence showed me what true education really is." Gasps rippled through the restaurant. Even Anna froze mid-step. Hartley continued, his voice low but sincere. "Anna Ruiz, if you're watching this, I'm sorry. You reminded me that success without respect means nothing. You taught me more in one night than any boardroom ever did." The reporters erupted with questions, but he stood up, bowed slightly, and walked off the stage. The broadcast ended, leaving a stunned silence in its wake. Mia looked at Anna, speechless. Did that really just happen?" Anna didn't answer. Her phone buzzed. A new message. Unknown number. She opened it. "Miss Ruiz, this apology isn't enough. There's something else I need to tell you. Please meet me tomorrow at the Rosemont Library. No cameras, no press. Just you and me. William Hartley. Asterisk." Her hands trembled. She reread it twice. Elena, watching from her hospital bed, smiled faintly. Maybe the man finally learned a language worth speaking. Remorse. Anna exhaled slowly. She wasn't sure if she wanted to see him, but something deep inside told her this meeting would change everything. And for the first time, William Hartley was about to speak the truth, in the only language Anna would understand. The next morning, the city was calm after a week of chaos. A soft rain drizzled over the streets, washing away the leftover headlines and gossip. Anna arrived at the Rosemont Library early. It was quiet, almost sacred, the kind of silence that held stories instead of secrets. She stood by the tall glass window, clutching her mother's silver bracelet, unsure what to expect. At exactly 10 o'clock, William Hartley walked in. No entourage, no bodyguards, no cameras. Just him. He looked older than she remembered, his arrogance stripped away, replaced by something human. Regret. "Miss Ruiz," he greeted softly. "Mr. Hartley," she replied. They stood there in awkward silence for a moment, surrounded by rows of books, the perfect audience for a conversation about knowledge and humility. "I owe you more than an apology," Hartley began. "I owe you honesty. I was raised to believe power made me better than others. I built an empire on that lie. And when you stood up to me, it cracked everything I thought I knew." Anna's eyes softened, but she said nothing. He continued, his voice trembling slightly. "My ex-wife left me for a professor years ago. Since then, I've hated everything that reminded me of intellect, of compassion, You didn't just speak 5 languages that night, Miss Ruiz. You spoke the one I'd forgotten completely. Respect. Anna blinked back tears. Respect shouldn't be a foreign language, sir. A sad smile touched his lips. No, it shouldn't. He reached into his coat and handed her a sealed envelope. This is my attempt to fix what I broke. Anna hesitated, then opened it. Inside was a document with an embossed gold seal. Her eyes widened as she read the title, The Ruiz Language Scholarship, for workers who dream again. Hartley looked down, almost shy. It's a fund, named after you. It'll cover tuition for anyone who had to leave school because of financial hardship. I thought maybe that's how I could make amends. For the first time, Anna was speechless. Why me? She whispered. He met her gaze. Because you reminded me that knowledge isn't measured in wealth. It's measured in worth. The rain outside slowed to a gentle mist. The two stood there in silence, both changed in ways neither could fully explain. When they finally parted, Hartley extended his hand. Thank you, he said simply. Anna shook it. For what? For teaching me how to speak again. Months later, the scholarship went viral. Students, waiters, single mothers, all applied. Anna became the director of a free community language center, teaching people from every walk of life. Julian Crane published her story, calling it The Night the Waitress Changed a Billionaire. Every morning, sunlight poured through the classroom windows as Anna greeted her students in 5 different languages. On the wall behind her hung a single quote framed in gold. Respect speaks every language. And for once, the world finally listened. 3 months later, the Ruiz Language Scholarship had become national news. Donations poured in, interviews aired, and Anna found herself invited to talk shows she never dreamed of attending. She stayed humble, always reminding people, this isn't my story. It's everyone's story who's ever been told they're not enough. But behind the praise, the world was shifting for William Hartley, too. The billionaire who once ruled boardrooms now faced suspicion from his own circle. Shareholders questioned his sudden change of heart. Old allies whispered he'd gone soft. His board wanted him out. He sat in the corner office he had once designed to intimidate, staring at the skyline that now felt distant. Veronica Dale, his PR director, entered quietly. They're voting tomorrow, she said. If you show weakness, they'll take everything. Hartley sighed. Maybe they should. She frowned. You built this empire. Don't throw it away for guilt. He looked up, eyes weary but clear. Maybe it's not guilt. Maybe it's growth. Veronica studied him for a moment, then softened. You're not the man I started working for. Good, he said simply. That man didn't deserve loyalty. That same afternoon, Anna visited her mother at the rehab center. Elena was recovering well, her laughter returning with every story Anna shared about her students. The small classroom she'd started in the library had grown into a full-fledged community center. Immigrants, workers, and even retirees came to learn. Can you believe it, Mama? Anna smiled. We have over 300 students. Elena's eyes glistened with pride. I can, because you've always spoken from the heart. That's the hardest language of all. But not everyone celebrated her success. Online, critics accused her of using Hartley's guilt for fame. Tabloids twisted headlines, from waitress to millionaire, thanks to the man she shamed. One evening, Julian Crane found her sitting alone in the empty classroom, scrolling through hate comments. Don't read that garbage, he said gently. I just wanted to help people, she murmured. Now they think I did it for attention. Julian sat beside her. You can't control what they say. You can only control what you stand for. Anna smiled faintly. Sounds like something my mother would say. Then she's right, he said softly. Across town, Hartley attended the board meeting. Every vote went against him. When it ended, he stood, buttoned his jacket, and smiled calmly. Gentlemen, he said, you can take the company. But I'm taking my conscience. As he walked out of the glass tower, flashes from the press followed him, shouting questions about failure. He didn't answer. For the first time, silence felt powerful. That night, he wrote one final check, anonymous, and sent it to the Ruiz Center for Language and Dignity. When Anna opened the envelope days later, She gasped. Enough money to keep the center running for years. And though no name was written, she knew exactly who had spoken, without saying a single word. Spring arrived with blossoms across the city, and the Ruiz Center was thriving. Students filled every seat, from construction workers learning English to retirees mastering French. Anna's name was now synonymous with compassion and courage. Yet, for all the applause, something inside her felt incomplete, like a story half told. One afternoon, as she was reviewing applications, Mia rushed into her office, holding a letter. "You got this in the mail," she said, breathless. "No return address." Anna opened it carefully. Inside was a single page, typed on fine paper. "Miss Ruiz, I am writing on behalf of Mr. William Hartley. He has fallen gravely ill. He asked that you visit him. No reporters, no press, just you. He said there are things you deserve to know. Veronica Dale." Asterisk. Anna froze. Hartley, the man who once called her uneducated, then changed the course of her life, was dying. That night, she couldn't sleep. Memories replayed. His arrogance, his apology, his awkward kindness at the library. She didn't know if she owed him forgiveness, gratitude, or nothing at all. By morning, she'd made her decision. Some debts couldn't be ignored, and not because they were owed, but because they were human. The Hartley estate was quieter than she remembered, stripped of the lavish energy that once defined it. The staff moved like shadows. A nurse led her to a sunlit room where the once powerful man now sat in a wheelchair, thinner, paler, but with eyes still sharp. "Miss Ruiz," he said, his voice fragile but warm. "You came." "I wasn't sure I should," she admitted. "Neither was I," he smiled faintly. "But I needed to see the one person who ever spoke to me like I was a man, not a brand." Anna sat beside him. "How are you feeling?" He looked out the window, alive enough to regret, dying enough to finally mean it. She stayed silent, letting him speak. "I spent decades chasing respect," he continued, "but I only earned fear. You gave me the one thing I couldn't buy. Truth. I used to think you ruined me. Now I see you saved me." Her throat tightened. "You saved yourself, Mr. Hartley. I just reminded you who you were." He smiled again, weakly. "Then let me remind you who you are." He handed her a folder. Inside were legal documents transferring ownership of a downtown property to the Ruiz Center. "A permanent home," he said softly, for voices the world ignores. Tears welled in Anna's eyes. "Why me?" "Because you made me believe words still matter." His hand trembled as she took it. The man who once crushed others with arrogance now seemed small, almost childlike. "Promise me," he whispered. "You'll keep teaching them. The languages, the kindness, all of it." "I promise," Anna said through tears. He nodded once, satisfied. "Then I can rest." And when she left the room, the sound of his gratitude followed her like a prayer, spoken in every language of the heart. The call came 3 days later, just after dawn. Anna was setting up the morning lessons when her phone vibrated against the desk. The nurse's voice on the other end was gentle, but steady. "Miss Ruiz, Mr. Hartley passed away early this morning." Peacefully. For a moment, the world stopped. She sank into a chair, her hands trembling around the phone. The man who had once humiliated her in front of hundreds, the man who later helped build her dream, was gone, and somehow it didn't feel like the end of an enemy's story. It felt like losing someone she had only just begun to understand. Mia found her sitting there, staring at nothing. "Anna, are you okay?" Anna wiped her eyes quickly. "He's gone." Mia knelt beside her. "I'm sorry." "They said it was peaceful," Anna murmured. "He asked me to promise I'd keep teaching. I think he already knew that was how he'd live on." The next day, newspapers filled with obituaries. "William Hartley, billionaire philanthropist, dies at 46. Every article mentioned his redemption, the scholarship, and the woman who inspired it. But Anna stayed away from the spotlight. She attended his private funeral quietly, standing near the back, beneath the old oak trees of St. Aurelia Cemetery. Veronica Dale spotted her from a distance and approached after the service. Her usual corporate sharpness had melted into something softer. He thought of you every day, you know, she said. He kept a photo of the first class at your center on his desk. Anna nodded, tears threatening again. He didn't owe me that. Veronica shook her head. He didn't do it because he owed you. He did it because you were the first person who didn't need anything from him, and that terrified him. As mourners drifted away, Anna stayed. The wind whispered through the trees. On the marble stone, beneath his name, was a simple engraving. He learned to listen. That night, back at the center, Anna gathered her students. Some had heard the news. She told them a story, not about power or money, but about second chances. Once, she said softly, a man believed value came from wealth, but life taught him something different. He realized that kindness is the purest form of intelligence. The room was silent, filled with faces from every culture and age. Then one student, a young mother from Brazil, raised her hand. "Miss Ruiz," she asked shyly, "do you think people can really change?" Anna smiled faintly, her voice breaking just enough to make it human. "Yes," she said, "but only if someone believes they can." After class, she locked up and stepped into the cool night air. Across the street, the city lights glimmered on the wet pavement. She thought of Hartley, his last smile, his trembling voice, the man he became. And as she whispered a quiet goodbye, the echo of forgiveness felt louder than any applause the world could ever give. Weeks after William Hartley's funeral, peace settled briefly over Anna's life. The new building for the Ruiz Center was under renovation, funded by the property he'd left her. Each day she watched construction workers lay bricks and paint walls, imagining the laughter of future students filling those halls. But peace, as always, doesn't last long when money is involved. One afternoon, as she was finalizing enrollment forms, Mia burst into her office, pale. "Anna, you need to see this." She held up her phone. A news alert flashed across the screen. "Hartley's family disputes property transfer. Claims waitress manipulated the late billionaire." Anna's stomach dropped. She read the headline twice, her pulse quickening. "They're saying you took advantage of him," Mia whispered, "that you convinced him to give you the property while he was sick." Anna shook her head in disbelief. "That's not true. Veronica was there, the nurse. Everyone knew it was his choice." "I know," Mia said, "but the public doesn't." Within hours, reporters swarmed the center. Cameras flashed, microphones shoved into her face. "Miss Ruiz, did you coerce William Hartley? Were you romantically involved? Did you forge documents?" Anna's voice trembled as she answered, "No, I didn't. Everything was legal. He wanted to help." But no one cared about the truth. Scandal sold better. By evening, her phone was exploding with messages, some supportive, many hateful. Students' parents began withdrawing their children, afraid of being dragged into controversy. Donations stopped. That night, Anna sat alone in the empty classroom, staring at the blackboard still covered in phrases from the last lesson. Hope, dignity, respect. They suddenly felt like fragile words on a wall of lies. Julian Crane arrived quietly, setting down 2 coffees. "You've seen the headlines," he said softly. She nodded. "They're going to destroy everything we built." Julian leaned against the desk. "Then we fight back. With truth." "How?" she asked bitterly. "The dead can't defend me." He smiled faintly. "But the living can. Veronica Dale still works for the Hartley estate, and I've got a feeling she's not happy with what they're doing." The next day, Anna and Julian met Veronica at a cafe downtown. She looked exhausted, the corporate mask gone. "They're twisting everything," Veronica said, sliding a folder across the table. Inside were signed statements, Hartley's final legal papers, verified by witnesses. He meant every word in that transfer. "I'll testify if I have to." Anna's eyes filled with tears. "Thank you." Veronica shook her head. "Don't thank me. He'd hate what they're doing. He called you to his redemption." That night, Anna released a public statement with Julian's help. Calm, heartfelt, undeniable. She didn't attack. She told the story, the insult, the lessons, the forgiveness, the gift. By morning, the tide began to turn. People remembered who she was, the woman who'd stood tall, not for fame, but for respect. But Anna knew this wasn't over, because where truth lives, greed always comes to claim a share. Word count, 500. The lawsuit came faster than anyone expected. Within a week, Ana Ruiz received an official summons, the Hartley family versus the Ruiz Language Foundation. The late billionaire's estranged relatives claimed the property transfer was invalid, insisting Ana had emotionally manipulated a dying man. Ana sat at her kitchen table that night, the papers spread before her like a battlefield. "They're saying I took advantage of him," she whispered. Her mother, Elena, placed a trembling hand over hers. "You don't need to defend what's pure, mihija. The truth has its own voice." Still, the fear was real. One lawsuit could erase everything: her center, her name, the scholarship. Julian Crane found her pacing in the empty classroom. "They think you'll settle," he said. "They want you scared." Ana looked up, fire in her eyes. "Then they picked the wrong woman." The courtroom was filled to capacity on the first day of the hearing. Reporters packed the benches, cameras waited outside. Across the aisle sat Hartley's nephew, Raymond, a man who looked like greed dressed in silk. His lawyers smirked as Ana took her seat beside her attorney, a quiet pro bono advocate named Laura Chen. When the judge entered, silence fell. The proceedings began. Raymond's attorney wasted no time painting Ana as an opportunist. A waitress with no education somehow ends up owning prime real estate worth $8 million. Convenient, isn't it? Ana clenched her fists. He waved a document. Mr. Hartley was gravely ill, under medication. How could he make a sound decision? Laura rose calmly. "We have evidence proving he was of full mental capacity when he signed the transfer, witnessed, notarized, and filed legally." Then she called the first witness, Veronica Dale. The courtroom buzzed as Veronica took the stand. Her testimony was steady, piercing. "Mr. Hartley knew exactly what he was doing. He told me personally, I owe Ana Ruiz the chance to give others what I once took for granted. Respect." A murmur swept through the crowd. The opposing lawyer tried to rattle her. "Miss Dale, weren't you fired from Hartley Holdings?" "Yes," Veronica said, smiling faintly, "for telling the truth." Julian's camera flashed from the back row, documenting every word. When Ana was called to testify, the room went still. Her voice trembled at first, but then steadied. "I never asked Mr. Hartley for anything. Not an apology. Not money. What he gave me, he gave freely. I only tried to honor it." The judge studied her closely. "Miss Ruiz, why didn't you walk away when he insulted you?" Anna's eyes glistened. "Because silence helps no one. If I stayed quiet that night, I wouldn't be here teaching people today that their worth isn't determined by status." The courtroom erupted in quiet applause before the judge banged the gavel. As she stepped down from the stand, Julian caught her eye and whispered, "You just won the real battle." Because in that room, truth had spoken louder than wealth, and everyone understood its language. Word count, 500. The final day of the trial arrived under a grey, heavy sky. Reporters crowded the courthouse steps, shouting questions as Ana and Julian walked past the flashing cameras. Inside, tension hung thick in the air. Everyone knew this case wasn't just about property. It was about character, about whether the world still believed that integrity could outlast greed. Raymond Hartley sat smugly at the plaintiff's table, his gold cufflinks glinting under the fluorescent lights. Across from him, Ana sat quietly, her hands folded in her lap, her silver bracelet catching the same light. It was the only thing she owned that money couldn't buy, a symbol of her mother's faith. Laura Chen, her attorney, leaned in. "Stay calm, Ana. Whatever happens, you already won where it matters." Ana nodded, though her stomach twisted. The judge entered, and the courtroom rose. When everyone sat, he cleared his throat and began reading the verdict. For the matter of the Hartley family versus the Ruiz Language Foundation, this court finds... The pause stretched into eternity. Ana held her breath, in favor of the defendant, Miss Ana Ruiz. For a moment, no one moved. Then the courtroom erupted. Cheers, applause, gasps. Reporters rushed for the doors to broadcast the verdict. Ana covered her mouth in disbelief. Tears filled her eyes as Mia and Julian hugged her from behind. Raymond shot to his feet. "This is a joke. She manipulated my uncle." The judge slammed his gavel. "Enough, Mr. Hartley. The evidence is clear. Your uncle acted of his own free will. Perhaps you should learn from his example." Raymond's face went pale as security guided him out. Anna sat back down, tears streaming silently down her cheeks. The noise faded around her until all she could hear was her heartbeat and her mother's voice in her mind. The truth has its own language, Mejia. Outside the courthouse, a wall of cameras awaited. Journalists swarmed her with questions. "Miss Ruiz, how does it feel to win? What message do you want to send to the world?" Anna paused, steadying her voice. "This wasn't just my victory. It was for everyone who's ever been told they're less because of where they come from. Mr. Hartley once called me uneducated, but he taught me something. Education isn't about wealth or titles. It's about the heart." The crowd fell silent for a beat before bursting into applause. Julian stepped beside her, smiling. "You know this story's going global, right?" She laughed softly through tears, then let it. Maybe someone out there needs to hear it. That night, the verdict trended worldwide. #Respect Speaks Every Language flooded social media. Former students, immigrants, and strangers shared their own stories of resilience, tagging Anna's name with messages of gratitude. In her quiet apartment, Anna lit a candle and whispered, "Thank you, Mr. Hartley. You finally built something that will last." Because in the end, the man who once tried to silence her gave her the loudest voice of all. And the world was finally listening. Months passed after the trial, and the noise of media headlines began to fade. What remained, however, was something far stronger: a movement. Across the country, schools, cafes, and community centers began creating their own Ruiz programs, inspired by the waitress who had silenced a billionaire with nothing but grace and courage. Anna never sought fame, but fame found her anyway. Letters flooded the center from all over the world. Teachers from Kenya, students from Japan, mothers from Brazil, all thanking her for proving that dignity has no uniform and intelligence has no price tag. One evening, Anna stood in the new headquarters of the Ruiz Center for Language and Dignity. The building glowed softly under golden light, the walls covered in murals painted by her students. Each mural showed a word in a different language: respect, courage, humanity. Mia walked in with a box of freshly printed invitations. "We're ready," she said. "For what?" Anna asked, smiling. "The dedication ceremony," Mia replied. "The city's mayor, reporters, even university professors are coming. Oh, and Julian's doing a live feature for national TV." Anna chuckled nervously. "You make it sound like I'm some kind of legend." Mia grinned. "You are." That night, as the event began, hundreds gathered in the courtyard. Cameras flashed, but Anna's eyes stayed fixed on the students seated in the front row, some holding notebooks, others clutching dictionaries she had donated herself. Julian took the stage first. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, "tonight we honor not just a woman, but an idea, that words can change the world when spoken with heart." Applause echoed through the night. Then he gestured toward her. "Please welcome Anna Ruiz." Anna stepped forward slowly, her palms damp, her heart thudding in her chest. When she finally spoke, her voice was soft but sure. "When I first walked into Orem Hall, I was invisible," she began. "To many, I was just a waitress with no degree, no worth. But that night taught me something. The moment you choose silence in the face of cruelty, you become part of it. I didn't speak up to humiliate anyone. I spoke because respect deserves a voice." The crowd leaned in, completely still. "A man named William Hartley once called me uneducated. He was wrong, but not in the way people think. He wasn't unkind because he was rich. He was unkind because he'd forgotten what learning really meant. And before he died, he learned again." She looked towards the sky, her eyes shimmering. "This center isn't mine. It's his, too. Because redemption, like language, belongs to everyone willing to speak it." The audience rose to their feet in thunderous applause. Mia hugged her tightly. Julian captured the moment on film. Later that night, as the lights dimmed and guests departed, Anna stood alone under the stars. She whispered in Spanish, then English, then French. 5 different languages for one message. "Thank you for teaching me that words can heal." And in that quiet, the world finally spoke back, with hope. The weeks following the dedication ceremony were a blur of cameras, interviews, and flashing lights. Anna's story had grown larger than her life. Every major network wanted her on air. Universities invited her to speak. Social media crowned her the voice of respect. But fame, like wealth, came with shadows. She found herself running from meeting to meeting, signing contracts, attending galas. What once felt like purpose began to feel like pressure. Mia noticed it first, the dark circles under Anna's eyes, the faint tremor in her hands when she picked up the phone. "You haven't slept in days," Mia said one morning, closing the office door behind her. "You're burning yourself out." Anna forced a tired smile. "I can't stop now. The foundation's growing faster than we imagined. We have to meet the demand." Mia folded her arms. "At what cost? You're becoming what you fought against, someone who forgets what matters." The words stung because they were true. Anna glanced at the framed photo of her first class, the group that started it all, and felt something twist inside her. When was the last time she'd taught a lesson? Or laughed with a student? That night, after another exhausting interview, she returned to her apartment. The city outside glittered like gold, but inside, everything was silent. Her mother's voice echoed in memory. "Knowledge means nothing if you lose kindness." The next morning, Julian Crane showed up at her door, holding coffee. "You missed our meeting?" he said softly. "I know," Anna replied. "I needed a break. From everything." Julian sat beside her on the couch. "You've changed lives, Anna. But don't let the noise drown out the reason you started." She looked down. "Sometimes I wonder if I've become part of the machine I tried to fight." Julian smiled gently. "Then maybe it's time to remind them who you really are." He reached into his bag and pulled out a newspaper draft. On the front page was her photo under the headline, "Ana Ruiz, the waitress who taught the world to listen." "I'm publishing this tomorrow," he said. "But I want your words, your truth, to end it." Anna took the pen he offered, staring at the blank section beneath the article. Slowly she began to write. "I was never special. I was just tired of being silent. Fame doesn't make us wiser. Listening does. So if my story means anything, let it remind you that kindness is a language we can all learn." She handed the paper back, smiling faintly. "Print it." The article went live the next day. It wasn't polished or dramatic, just honest, and it spread faster than any viral clip ever could. Messages poured in again, but this time they were different, quieter, deeper. People wrote not to praise her, but to share how they'd chosen empathy over ego, forgiveness over pride. As she read through them, Anna whispered, "Maybe this is what true fame feels like." And for the first time in months, the noise of the world finally felt like music again. Autumn painted the city in shades of gold and fire. The leaves drifted down the streets like pages from a story almost finished. For the first time in months, Anna allowed herself to breathe, to exist without deadlines, interviews, or flashing cameras. The chaos of fame had softened into something gentler, quieter. At the Ruiz Center, classes continued as usual. Laughter filled the halls again. Students greeted her with hugs, and the smell of coffee and chalk dust replaced the noise of microphones. But something still lingered, a quiet weight in Anna's heart that no applause could erase. One afternoon, she found a small envelope in the mail. The handwriting was unfamiliar, sharp and deliberate. Inside was a single page. "Miss Ruiz, my name is Raymond Hartley. I was wrong. I fought to destroy your name because I couldn't bear the idea that my uncle saw in you what he never saw in me. I've lost everything now, my company shares, my reputation, my peace. But what I can still do is say what I should have said in court. I'm sorry. Raymond *. Anna stared at the letter for a long time, her emotions tangled between shock, sadness, and relief. She folded it gently, slipping it into her bag. That evening, she called Julian. "He wrote to me," she said quietly. "Raymond?" Julian asked, surprised. "After everything?" "Yes," Anna replied. "He apologized." Julian's voice softened. "Are you going to respond?" Anna looked out the window at the sunset, the sky melting into crimson. "Yes," she whispered, "but not with anger." I think forgiveness deserves to be spoken to. The next day, she sat at her desk and began to write. Mr. Hartley, thank you for your letter. I don't hold anger toward you. Pain can make us cruel. Pride can make us blind. But every day gives us a chance to start again. Your uncle taught me that forgiveness is the last language people learn, but the first they should speak. I hope you find peace. Ana Ruiz *. When she sealed the envelope, she felt lighter, like setting down a weight she didn't realize she'd been carrying. Weeks later, a small bouquet arrived at the Ruiz Center, white lilies with a note, for the teacher who taught the world how to forgive. Anna placed the flowers on the desk in her classroom. The scent filled the air as her students gathered. She looked at their eager faces, people of every color, background and dream, and smiled. Today, she said softly, we'll learn something new, a word that exists in every language, but means the same everywhere. They leaned forward, pens ready. The word, she continued, writing it on the board in bold letters, is forgiveness. As she spoke, sunlight spilled through the windows, warming her face. Somewhere, she imagined William and even Raymond hearing her words, finally understanding what true education meant, because forgiveness, like love, is a language that never needs translation. Winter returned to the city, soft and quiet, the way endings often arrive. Snow blanketed the streets outside, the Ruiz Center for Language and Dignity, muffling the noise of the world. Inside, warmth radiated from the students' laughter and the steady rhythm of chalk against the blackboard. Anna stood at the front of the classroom, her voice gentle but strong. Today, she said, is our last lesson of the year. A chorus of playful groans filled the room. Already? One of her students asked. Anna smiled. Yes, already. But endings are just another kind of beginning. She turned to the board and wrote 5 words, one in each language she spoke. Respect, courage, forgiveness, truth, love. These, she said, underlining each word, are the real languages of life. They don't need grammar or translation. They need only a heart. Her students listened in silence. For many of them, immigrants, refugees, workers who had been silenced for too long, this wasn't just a school. It was a sanctuary, a place where their voices mattered. As the class ended, they surrounded her with hugs and thank yous. One of them, a young girl from Syria, pressed a small folded note into Anna's hand. Miss Ruiz, she said shyly, you taught me English. But more than that, you taught me to be proud of my voice. Anna's eyes filled with tears. She hugged the girl tightly. Never stop speaking, she whispered. That night, the center hosted its first winter celebration. Families filled the hall, tables lined with food from every culture. Paella, dumplings, tamales, pasta, curry. Flags hung from the ceiling like stories sewn together. Julian Crane took the stage, holding a microphone. Before we end tonight, he said, there's someone we need to thank. The woman who turned humiliation into hope, who reminded us that humanity speaks louder than money. Please welcome Ana Ruiz. Applause thundered through the hall. Anna stepped forward, blinking back tears. When I started as a waitress, she began, I thought I was small. I believed power belonged only to those with titles or wealth. But I was wrong. Power belongs to anyone brave enough to speak with kindness. Sarima! She paused, her gaze sweeping the crowd. A man once called me uneducated. But because of that, I learned my most important lesson. No degree can teach dignity. That comes from how we treat each other. The audience rose, clapping, cheering, some even crying. From the back of the hall, Mia watched proudly, and beside her, Elena, frail but glowing, smiled through tears. When the applause finally faded, Anna looked towards the sky visible through the glass ceiling. Snowflakes drifted down slowly, catching the light like silver confetti. Wherever you go, she said softly, remember this. Respect speaks every language. Forgiveness heals every wound. And love is the only translation we'll ever need. The hall stood in perfect silence for a moment before the room erupted again in applause, laughter, and tears. And as the snow fell outside, the story of the waitress who silenced a billionaire became something greater, a lesson the whole world would never forget. And just like that, our story comes to an end. But if you're still here right now, it means something in this journey touched your heart. Maybe a word, a moment, or a feeling that whispered, "This is for you." Anna's story reminds us that true education isn't found in titles or wealth. It's found in kindness, courage, and the ability to stay calm when life tests your dignity. As the Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." That's what Anna did. She turned humiliation into healing, pride into compassion, and pain into purpose. So maybe that's the lesson for all of us. To respond to cruelty with grace, to choose understanding over revenge, and to remember that respect speaks every language. No matter where you come from or what you've lost, your voice still matters. If this story moved you, please give it a like, share it with someone who needs hope tonight, and subscribe to our channel, because somewhere out there, another heart is waiting for a reminder that even in silence, we can still speak with love.